Hey folks, Ed from Brain Pulp TV, and I am back with more Magic the Gathering online content. This time we're going to be doing something that we haven't done before, and I think is brand new to Magic Online. I know Sealed Leagues just started up a few weeks ago. This is a different kind of Sealed League. This is the Shadows Over Innistrad Friendly 9-Match League. Now, it's sort of the same as the 5-match league, but it's done in a different fashion. Obviously, there's 9 matches instead of 5, which is one of the big differences, but this is done in 3 stages instead of 1. So instead of one stage where you play 5 matches at your own leisure, because you can choose when you, as long as you do it before the end of the league, and in this case, the league ends in July 27th, so we have a lot of time to get through these games. So you do get to play whenever you want for the most part. Now, with this particular league, there's 3 stages, each with 3 games, or 3 matches each. So, depending on how well you do, not just overall, but within those each stage, impacts the prizes that you get. So instead of me trying to go off of memory as to what the prize breakdown is for the 9-match sealed leagues, I'm going to go to the actual site, which explains it a hell of a lot better than I could just off the top of my head. Okay, so here's the information that you'll need to know about the sealed friendly 9-match league if you're thinking of joining one as well too. The league starts on April 18th. We're already past that. It is the 19th today, so this is the second day that it's been available. The league closes on July 25th. Now, the difference between closing and ending, aside from the date, which as far as the league ending, it's on July 27th, is that you can't join the league past July 25th. However, you still have roughly two more days to play. The format is Shadows Over Innistrad, which of course is the newest set at this current time. The entry options are 28 event tickets, 6 Shadows Over Innistrad booster packs, and 4 event tickets, or 280 play points. During the pre-release, I was able to win roughly, I think it was around 9 or 10 packs. So I entered using packs and event tickets. Size 5,000 competitors per league. Now this has something that's different. Because this isn't done in 3 stages, it's 3 games or 3 matches per stage. They have what they're calling here a stage upgrade option. So for 4 event tickets, 1 Shadow Over Innistrad booster, or 40 player points, you, I'm guessing, get to add a booster to your pool. Now, I'm not super keen on this idea as far as my own play pool goes. I might do it just to, for the sake of it, because I do have some extra packs and everything and some extra tickets. However, I'll see how my deck does without this upgrade, and we'll go from there. Now, the rounds, up to 9 rounds at your convenience, which I mentioned before, and each round up to 50 minutes, which is pretty standard if you play either draft or sealed. Now, here's the breakdown of the prizes. There are overall prizes for the number of wins in total out of all 9 matches that you play, and then there are stage prizes. I'm actually going to jump down and we're going to look at the stage prizes first. Now, you get 10 player points if you get completely blanked. If you win absolutely no matches during that particular stage, you still get 10 player points. If you win 1, you get 20. If you win 2, 30, and if you win 3, you win 40. Now, the thing about stage prizes is you get there's 3 stages, which means that you can, in total, if you win 9 matches, get 120 extra player points, because you'll be getting 40 per stage. Or if you win 2 per stage, you'll be getting 90 in total. And that is added onto the overall prizes. Now, the overall prizes for this are, if there are 4 match wins out of 9, you get 50 player points. If there are 5 match wins, 100. 6 match wins, 200. Now, when you get to 7, 8, and 9, that's when you start winning booster packs. So 7 match wins, 1 booster pack, and 200 player points, and 1 qualifier point. 8 match wins get you 2 booster packs. The same thing otherwise, 200 player points and 1 qualifier point. And if you're able to go through all 9 matches completely undefeated, you're going to get 3 Shadows of Innistrad booster packs, 200 player points, 3 qualifier points, and remember, that is on top of what you get from as far as your stage prizes go. So now that we've gone over how the 9-match sealed league works, let's see my card pool, which I got to admit, I'm not super crazy about, but I've constructed at least one deck that I think might be playable in this league. Okay, so this is my sealed pool. Now, I realize it's based on 6 packs of Shadows Over Innistrad, so you are going to get some duplicates. I found that the number of duplicates I got is a little annoying, even based on in the fact that some of these cards that are duplicates are commons, and I get that, I completely get that. But at the same time, the mix I got here was really left something to be desired. First, before we get to that, let's just take a quick look at the rares that we have. So we do have a mythic. We have Mind Rack Demon. Now, this is the only real bomb that I have, if you can consider a 4/5 flyer a bomb, which it can be. The only downside, and it can be a doozy, is that it needs Delirium. Otherwise, I start losing 4 life every single time I hit my upkeep. Now, it's still a 4/5 for 4, which is great. And when it enters the battlefield, I'm going to put the top 4 cards in my library into my graveyard, so that it's in itself can help enable Delirium. And as well, too, I think if any of you have played Shadows Over Innistrad or had a chance to play it in any of the drafts, it can be fairly quick and easy to get your Delirium count in your graveyard, but sometimes not so much. Anyways, we have a Drownyard Temple, which, boy, I'm so excited I opened that in my sealed. Epiphany at the Drownyard, which is an instant, which is, for those of you who remember the card Factor Fiction, this is somewhat similar to it, with a bit of flexibility, and it really helps, in the case of Shadows of Innistrad, enable Delirium. So it's reveal the top X+1 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles, put that pile in your hand and the other into your graveyard. Now, you'll see in a bit, but blue is not my strongest color. It is by far the strongest color if I wanted to have some sort of madness Delirium strategy, or enablers anyways, but it is not overall the strongest color that I have. Sorry, this is a split, so I know it's going to be, I'm just going to move that over so you guys can see it a little bit better, even though it's sort of peeking over the overlay here. Oh, we lost it. Hanweir Militia Captain. It's a 2-drop, 1 and 1 white, gets you a human soldier 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform the Militia Captain into the Westvale Cult Leader. Westvale Cult Leader's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. At the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 white/black human cleric creature token onto the battlefield. I really like this card. It makes me want to play white in this. Especially maybe like a white human strategy. However, I don't think we're going to... Well, you'll see, once again, you'll see the rest of my sealed pool in a second. So we have Scourge Wolf, which for 2 red, gets you a 2/2 first striker, which is kind of nice. And if it hits Delirium, it has double strike, which makes it even better. The only thing is, if it's not... Because it's red, it's going to be a little harder to splash something like this. So unless red is going to be one of my main colors, Scourge Wolf may be a bit harder to play. We have Second Harvest, which I think is a really cool card. I find it practically unplayable in sealed and draft, unless you're really lucky and are able to enable a really great token strategy. It's not going to get you the value that it would if you were to put it into some sort of interesting constructed deck. That's just my opinion. And I've mentioned this, I think, in every one of my draft and sealed videos. I am not an expert in draft or sealed, so I could be wrong there, but I'm not crazy about Second Harvest as far as it going into my sealed deck. Now, Traverse the Ulvenwald, it's a good card. It is a very good card, especially if you're playing more than 2 colors, because it can help you grab that extra land, which is great. And once Delirium hits, it even makes it good mid to late game because it can grab that creature you really need as well, too. I would have rather had some sort of bomb rare, because as you can see, we don't have like crazy bombs. I mean, the Militia Captain and Mind Rack aren't bad. Scourge Wolf is and then our other rares are really not, they don't have a lot of punch as far as a sealed goes, so I'm not super crazy about the rares that we got. Now, Let's do a quick look at what we have in each color, and you'll see what I meant before about the mix that we got as far as our cards wasn't the greatest. Okay, in white, we have Chaplain's Blessing. We have 2 Strength of Arms, which is a nice trick. I would only want 1 in a deck, and, well, it is what it is. Anyways, Town Gossip Monger, which I quite like. It's not super, super great, but it's something, and it transforms, and then it can do some work for you later on as a mana sink. 2 Devil Thorn Foxes. It's okay. Expose Evil, the Militia Captain, which we went over. Unruly Mob, which I think is good. It can get out of control. Angelic Purge, which I think is very good. Cathar's Companion. I initially thought this particular card would be very good. I haven't really been able to use it to, I guess, its full potential, so I'm not super crazy about it. We have Hope Against Hope, which if you're going for a human strategy especially is quite nice. Now, here's the thing. I got 4 Apothecary Geists. Now, I don't think this is a bad card. I don't think it's an especially good card. I don't want 4 copies of this in a sealed pool. I don't. Because, one, I don't see the world that I'm going to run all 4 copies. I don't see the world where I'm going to run 2 copies. So, that was unfortunate. Nearheath Chaplain, which I do like, because not only does it have lifelink, it doesn't have much of a, toughness goes, but it'll gain you 3 life, it'll take out a 3 toughness creature, and it can do some work from the graveyard by putting 2 flying spirit creature tokens onto the battlefield. If I go with white, this is definitely getting played. Reaper of Flight Moonsilver is expensive. It's 5 for a 3/3 flyer. It can be really good if you have Delirium and a lot of creatures. I'm not crazy about it, but if I go with a white build, I may end up putting it in there. Let's move on to blue. We have 3 Invasive Surgeries. These are uncommon. I end up with 3 of these things. I mean, you could sideboard it in, but what world in a sealed pool do you need 3 Invasive Surgeries? That kind of annoys me. Furtive Homunculus, which I don't think is super, super horrible. It's not super great. I got 2 of them, though. Once again, not a card I probably play more than 1 of. Just the Wind. It's Bounce, which is nice, and it's Bounce with Madness. I've never had my tempo thrown off too much by it. It's a nice little trick to put in there, especially if you have Madness enablers. Vessel of Paramnesia, which is really good if you're going for Delirium. But once again, blue, as you're going to continue to see, is not my strongest. I've got some nice little tricks in blue. I don't have a lot of great overall cards. Deny Existence, counter target creature spell, and it'll exile instead of putting in the graveyard, which for this particular set is useful. I got 2 of those. I would probably only run 1. Pieces of the Puzzle. I mean, yes, it's a Delirium enabler, but it looks up instance and sorcery cards, and really, for the most part, in my builds, I don't run a whole lot of instance and sorceries. I will have typically 16 creatures and maybe 7 other spells, so it's not super great. Once again, it does help with Delirium. Aberrant Researcher, I really love this card. I love this card in a constructed, here, let me just move it over for you guys. I love this card in a constructed format. I'd love to be able to play with it in that, but I don't find it particularly useful unless you're using a decent number of sorceries and instants. I could be wrong on this, but the speed in which you can get it to flip, or the consistency in which you can get it to flip, is not the greatest. So it's something I might add to a build, but I probably won't be using it in this particular one. Lamplighter of Shellhoff, it's okay, and it obviously gets better if you have zombies, which I don't think I have a single zombie in this entire sealed pool, which is ridiculous considering how many I've had in previous sealeds. Stormrider Spirit, I think it's good. It's a 3/3 flyer with flash, which is a nice surprise to your opponents. And we've already gone over Epiphany of the Drown Yard. So now we're going to go into black. We got Shambleback, which is It's more of sort of, I will sideboard this in if my opponent is going for Delirium and they're usually barely able to get there. It's nice to remove a creature card from their graveyard. However, creature cards are typically the easiest things to have in your graveyard to help with Delirium, so it's not super, super great, and I don't usually add it in. I certainly don't add it in my main deck. Sinister Concoction I would add in main deck because I think it's a great bit of removal. Heir of Falconwrath, which I'll move over for you guys to check out if you want, I think is great. It also will help with getting cards in your graveyard, even though it'll only do it once, but still, sometimes it can get that, that elusive land in your graveyard, which you couldn't get in there otherwise. Macabre Waltz is, I think, more useful in Shadows Over Innistrad than it was in, was Origins? Fate Reforged? Anyways, I can't remember which one, which of the previous sets it was in. I think maybe either Dragons or Fate Reforged, but don't quote me on that. It's more useful, I find, here because you're dumping so many cards at a time into your graveyard. This will help you sort of like grab the creature maybe you didn't want in your graveyard to begin with, and then you can discard another card, which can help maybe a little bit extra with your Delirium count. I don't always run it, but there are certain strategies where I would. Once again, to remind you guys, not an expert in this, but still, it's something I'm slowly trying to learn. Murderous Cut, I really love. I like Murderous Cut. It's a card I will pick highly in draft, and it's a good bit of removal, and it can be played from Madness, which is great. So, Vampire Noble, just 3/2 for 3, and it's a vampire, which is actually important in this format. Creeping Dread, I'll never play. I just don't ever see playing this in a sealed deck. Stallion of Ashmouth is great, especially, not great, but it's good, solid, and especially if you can get Delirium. Stormkirk Mentor Stromkirk Mentor is okay if you have vampires. Now, we do have a certain number of vampires. I don't want 2 of them. I certainly don't want 2 of them in my sealed pool, but we got them. Biting Rain. All creatures get -2/-2 until the end of turn. There are a lot of creatures in Shadows Over Innistrad that have 2 or less toughness. So this can be an incredible board clear, but that also cuts both ways, because unless you have creatures that are over 2, this can, may not be worth putting in. Still, if you're up against a strategy where they're flooding the board, and this could be a very good board wipe for you. And it has Madness as well, too, so sometimes you can get a discount on it. Mindwrack Demon, we already went over. Twins of Morer Estate, I quite like, especially if you can pay it for, or get it for its Madness cost. I think it's a very, very solid card. Now moving on to red, we have Ember Eye Wolf. Really like Ember Eye Wolf. I'm actually surprised how much I like it. It's done work for me in previous sealeds and drafts, and I quite enjoy it. Magmatic Chasm. I did really well in my last sealed, and yet this card ruined me twice. Ruined me twice in my last match. It is such a pain in the ass. I don't know if I'll play it. I might. But it is heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking when you have a board where you are just about to win. This gets played and it nullifies your entire set of blockers. There's not a ton of flyers. Blue's got a lot of flyers. White's got a certain number of flyers. But if you're not playing either of those colors, there's not a ton of flyers. And it doesn't matter if your guys have reach. As long as they don't have flying, they can't block. And this has given me such a crushing defeat. Several crushing defeats in the past. So I've gained a lot of respect for this card. I may not run it myself unless I find in a previous game that it could have been really useful. Anyways, Ravenous Bloodseeker it's decent. It's a 1/3 for 2, discard a card, and it gets +2/-1 at the end of turn. It's good for being a Delirium enabler. So in that sense, it's quite good, and it's also good if you can get a decent vampire build going. With sealeds, a lot of the time you can get almost a good build, but not quite. And vampires in this case is one of those things where it's like, I almost had enough to do a decent vampire build, but not quite. I almost had enough to do a decent human build, but not quite. And you get that a lot. I find you get that a lot in sealed, but you have to sort of make do with what you have. Sanguinary Mage, once again, vampire. It's great for a vampire build. It's an okay card. Senseless Rage. It's not the worst ever, but it's not. I don't think it's super, super great. Scourge Wolf, we've already talked about. Convicted Killer, we got 3 of them. Now, probably, here, let me just move this over so you guys can see. Let's get back to it. I'm probably the least upset about getting multiples of this because I will play 2 copies of a Convicted Killer. I don't know if I'd play 3 copies of Convicted Killer. I might, especially if I'm low on 3 jobs. It's still one of the better cards that I got in the sealed pool as far as it being a duplicate. So Convicted Killer I like, and I would definitely play with it. Play it if I was going to go for red. Especially, I mean, you can go for like a human or a wolf werewolf strategy with Convicted Killer or with any of the werewolves. Howlpack Wolf, I'm not crazy about. I mean, if you had a ton of wolves, I guess it would be useful. It's a 3/3 for 3, which isn't horrible, but I don't particularly care for this card because if you need a blocker, you're just stuck with this card if there's no other wolves on the board. So really dependent, I guess, on everything else you have. Pyre Hound obviously gets better the more instants and sorceries you have. It's a 2/3 for 4 with trample, and whenever you cast instant or sorcery spell, I can put a 1/1 counter on it. I would definitely play it, especially if I was playing something that had instants and sorceries in a decent number. Structural Distortion, it's a sideboard card, and even then it's not super, super great. Voldaren Duelist. Another one of those cards which, when they hit the board, can be disastrous for you. If you think you're doing okay, this can end up sneaking through just the right amount of damage to ruin your entire game. So I quite like it. It's a vampire, so you know it also works with vampire strategies. Now we'll go on to green. Loam Dryad. If you're in desperate need of mana fixing, I guess this is okay. I thought it was going to be more useful in the past. I didn't find it all that useful. The idea of having to tap down an untapped creature as well as the Lone Dryad just to get that bit of mana. If you really are desperate for it, then yes, for sure. But otherwise, I probably won't play it because I think there's other ways of doing mana fixing, including, traverse the Ulvenwald, which we've talked about before. Aim High. I've become a huge fan of Aim High. I've become a huge fan of green in Shadows Over Innistrad. Aim High is one of those cards which you can catch your opponent. I've even been caught off guard about it, and I think about this card a lot. You can catch your opponent off guard because not only does it untap your creature, not only does it give it +2/+2, but it gives it reach as well. So if you have an entire board of non-flyers, why wouldn't they swing in? No one seems to expect Aim High, but I've got 2 copies of it, which I'm actually not super unhappy about because there are a lot of spells in blue that will tap down your creatures. So I've added an additional copy of Aim High to my decks just to sort of counteract that and sort of like do a little sneaky surprise to my opponents. Fork in the Road, I'm not crazy about, even as mana fixing. I got 2 copies of it, so whoopee. Obsessive Skinner is really good. In my opinion, it is really good, especially, of course, if you hit Delirium. This card just gets nuts after a while. Gloom Widow, I think it's solid. It's a 3/3 for 3. It's got reach. It can only block creatures with flying, but still, it's a decent body on the board. Ulvenwald Mysteries. This is a card where I played in my previous sealed that I did before. I did 2 sealeds, pre-release sealed leagues for Shadows Over Innistrad. The first one I did, I went 4-5, and I was playing this card. And I remember when I was doing the build thinking, how useful will this be? It seems like it could be fun. It seems like it could be like, a cool card to play, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. This card did so much work for me. The clue tokens it creates, the human tokens that it creates, just does this wonderful thing of you're not sad to see some of your guys go when this thing is on the board because you're getting to draw cards, you're getting to create tokens. This does a lot of work in my opinion. Any green build I have where this is one of the cards in my pool, I'm definitely going to put Ulvenwald Mysteries in. Once again, not an expert, so maybe I'm wrong in this. All I can say is from personal experience, I've never had bad experiences with this card once it hits the board. Equestrian Skill, you know, I don't think this card is bad, but I've never played it. Even when I've played strong human strategies, I've never played Equestrian Skill. I would rather cast something else for 4 than this. This could be one of those cards that I'm just undervaluing, which is possible. I've got 2 copies of it, of course. Intrepid Provisioner, I really like this. See, I would rather cast Intrepid Provisioner and get another 3/3 body on the board, especially one that has trample, than have Equestrian Skill. Equestrian Skill. It's just, I like this card a lot better. So, you know, I just check in to see. For a second I had a weird feeling that I wasn't recording, which would be really annoying, considering that I'm almost done this thing. Might Beyond Reason, which is not really beyond reason. It's, even with Delirium, it's okay. I won't play it. Second Harvest we already talked about. Watcher in the Web, 2/5 for 5. But the fact that it can block an additional 7 creatures, especially if your opponent is playing a lot of smaller creatures, is nuts. Like, think of it. If they've got a bunch of 1/1 tokens, you can block 4 of them with this one creature, and it still lives. It's a card I will definitely put in to a white build. I don't know why I didn't get more copies of this than, you know, Fork in the Road, but whatever. Go quickly over the land. We saw before that I got a Drownyard Temple. Okay, Forsaken Sanctuary, so, you know, a bit of mana fixing if I want to go with white-black. Highland Lake, same thing if I want to go blue-red. Mountains, islands, yada, yada, yada. True Faith Censor. Now, this has been played against me, and it's been a pain in the ass. I don't like putting equipment in my decks a lot of the time. I would consider maybe putting this one in to a deck, especially if I had human strategy going. But at the same time, I mean, it's 2 to get out there, 2 to equip. It's one of the better pieces of equipment, I think, in this set, in my own thing. It's common as well, too. I don't know if I'm going to be playing with it. Magnifying Glass is really not, I don't find it to be that important in this particular set. Wicker Witch, if you need that extra bit of Delirium enabling, I mean, it's a 3/1 for 3 that goes into the bin, and it's both a creature and an artifact. So you're halfway Delirium if this hits the graveyard. Wildfield Scarecrow, I really like this card because not only can you put it into the graveyard yourself, it's also a 1/4 defender for 3. It acts as both an artifact and a creature once it's in the graveyard, and it will allow you to grab 2 lands from your deck. Even if later in the game, if you need to thin out your deck, because we've all been in the position where it's late in the game and all we're pulling is land, and we just wish that we could just weed out those last remaining lands, Wildfield Scarecrow can do work for it as well, too. You can block with it, and then before it dies, even if you were going to chump block with it, you know, sacrifice it, grab the land instead. At the least, you'll have 2 less land that you can grab late in the game. And Runaway Carriage, which I've never played. I've never seen anyone play it. I've never played it. I mean, it's a 5/6 trampler for 4 that you have 1 shot at using. It's, once again, it helps with Delirium as far as being an artifact and a creature goes, but, you know, it is what it is. It's I could see if you were in a desperate need to add it in, I probably won't add it in. Now, we've gone over the cards, probably a bit longer than I normally do, but I think it was important so that you guys could see the build that I ended up doing. I went with a white, black, green build. I don't like doing 3 colors in sealed, and I especially don't like doing it in draft. In a format like Khans of Tarkir, I mean, it was set up to be played more than 2 colors. But for Shadows Over Innistrad, I'm not super crazy about it. I have had some decent luck. The previous Sealed League that I went 4 to 5, it was 3 colors. So you can work around it, especially if you have certain cards like the Wildfield Scarecrow and Traverse the Ulvenwald. The green Vessel as well, too. Nascency, I think is Nascency? Nascency, I think it is. Vessel of Nascency is also really good to help out with that. So there are different spells that can sort of help it out. But in this case, I had enough good stuff in several colors, but not enough to create a very specific, pinpointed 2-color deck that has like a vampire strategy or human strategy. So I went with sort of like I ended up just grabbing decent stuff from 3 different colors and adding them in, and we're going to hope that it works out for us. Let's go over the deck right now. Now we've got Forest, Plains, Swamps, which is normal. We grabbed our Forsaken Sanctuary, which should hopefully help a little bit with the mana fixing. We got the Town Gossip Monger. We got Sinister Concoction, which I really, really like. We got Traverse the Ulvenwald, which early on can help us grab that land that we're missing, or later on maybe grab a creature. The Militia Captain, Unruly Mob, Heir of Falkenrath, Murderous Compulsion, which in previous drafts I think I kept referring to as Murderous Cut over and over again, but it is Murderous Compulsion, which is nice removal. And this is one of the reasons why I went with white and black, because they're the only colors that had any decent removal, and I'm a fan of removal. There wasn't even any good removal in red in this sealed pool, which is really unusual because I don't think I've had a sealed yet where there hasn't been some good or even mediocre red removal, but there was none this time around. Aim High, which might as well be removal, how it ends up getting used a lot of the time. Obsessive Skinner, once again, love this card. We already talked about the Scarecrow. It's going to help us hopefully mana fix. Ulvenwald Mysteries, it's a green build. I told you, if I do a green build, this is going to, and I have this card, it's going to go in. Gloom Widow, Vampire Noble. I might swap this out for like something else, but for right now it's a body. Hope Against Hope. This card I might take out and put in a creature instead. Maybe another Apothecary Geist or something like that. I want to play with it and see how it does. It might. We have a decent number of humans in this. It could do well for us. I'm not 100% sold on it, but there you go. This might be halfway decent. Angelic Purge, which I really like. I mean, I realize you have to sacrifice a permanent, and that can, kind of suck. It's sorcery speed. Once again, that can kind of suck, but it can exile a artifact, creature, or enchantment, and that versatility alone makes this, in my mind, really, really useful. And a lot of the times, I have the extra permanent to sacrifice to this, and it doesn't affect me one way or the other. We have Apothecary Geist, only playing one, decided not to go for mono Apothecary Geists in this particular build, even though I could add 3 more to my pool. Near Heath Chaplain, which I think is a really great card. Stallion of Ashmouth. We're somewhat trying to go for Delirium in this build, with very few Delirium enablers, which is not great. I mean, I know that's not great. I would rather be able to put some blue in this. I didn't find blue really worked with this, even though it was easily the best. Excuse me. Even though it was easily the best color to enable Delirium. So I'm going to try to get there without a whole lot of enablers. Mindwrack Demon is both an enabler and is really dependent on Delirium. So I'm hoping this is going to be the game winner for me a lot of the time, but we'll see. Intrepid Visioner. I do have a decent number of humans in this deck. It is also a 3/3 Trampler, which can be good, especially if I'm able to get something like Hope Against Hope on it. I think it'll be good. Reaper of Flight Moonsilver. I've been shut down by flyers, or basically dying the death of 1,000 cuts by flyers. I don't particularly like Reaper of Flight Moonsilver. I'm not a huge fan of it. We do, however, have Ulvenwald Mysteries, which is going to be creating some tokens for us. We have the Chaplain, which will eventually be able to create. So, I mean, we do have the ability to create things for this to eat. But once again, you make do with what you have, and this is a card which I probably wouldn't pick normally, and I'm not sold on. My mind can be completely changed by the end of the sealed. I could be like, wow, Reaper is the shit. It might be really, really awesome, but for now, I think it's okay. Twins of Moor Estate, which I quite like. and Watcher in the Web, which I also quite like. So that is our deck, our white, black, green deck. So yeah, I've been recording for a while, so this will probably be in its own video. If this is in its own video, which I'm fairly certain it's going to be, I will release it on the same day as the first game. So even though you're not going to be able to see the first game right after this video, there will be a link probably to that video at the end of this video, so you can just skip right to the first game in this 9-match Sealed League. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. I realize without actual gameplay in this particular one, it might not have been the most exciting video. I know some people like to see the ins and outs of how people go about creating their decks when it comes to Sealed. So if that's the case, then I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, if you have any advice, if you see a build which I'm missing that has worked for you, please leave that in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Given the fact that there's going to be 9 matches, in the past, I can't really act on people's advice because I will have recorded all the games before you guys even see the first game. In this particular instance, I do not see the world we live in where I'm going to be done all 9 matches before you guys see at least this video and probably the first game. So any advice you do have, I should be able to actually act on it, and I will definitely give you guys credit for anyone who sort of like maybe puts me in the right direction as far as what I could do to improve this deck. Anyways, take care everyone. Thank you very much for liking and subscribing. It means a lot to us here, and I'm going to see you all very soon.